On Overdrive this week, we check out the latest update on the luxurious Volvo XC90. We ride a modern classic, the Brixton Cromwell 1200, and chat with Anand Kulkarni, Chief Product Officer at Tata Passenger Electric Mobility, about Tata.ev's work in making the next generation of EVs more robust with longer range.
Hello and welcome to Overdrive. I'm Soini Dutt. The Volvo XC90, the three-row luxury SUV, has been given a fairly major update, but the engine has lost some of its performance. Let's see how it pans out in real-world conditions.
A few years ago, Volvo told us that it would go completely electric, which meant we would have to say goodbye to cars like the XC90. Clearly, that's not happened. So changing global dynamics mean that we get to savor this quiet and soothing luxury SUV all over again. But has the experience changed at all with this quite significant facelift? The Volvo XC90 has always managed that classy, timeless look well. That sense seems to have been taken forward with this update. The new face brings quite a bit more of a minimalistic, cool Scandinavian luxury theme. The headlamps are much sharper now with a more defined light signature. The asymmetrical grille and wider air dams create a flush, attractive look. As we said, the bodywork hasn't significantly changed. The 20-inch alloys now have a sharper theme that complements the other new changes. The rear sees a similar change as the front, with the quite recognizable vertical tail lamps becoming more compact and better detailed. Now with 7 seaters, one thing that you need to worry about is how much space there actually is with all 3 rows up. And I must say the XC90 does pretty well. So you can carry a few carry-on bags here, which is quite surprising. But really what you need to be doing if you have even 5 people up is this. Fold these down, which go completely flat to give you about 640 litres. You can lower this car to quite a deep level. Now the clean contemporary sense that you get from the outside of the new XC90, to be fair, seems to have been executed even better on the inside. Now to Volvo's credit, this car does not look like it's been around for nearly a decade now. And this new screen, again it's angled towards the driver, it looks a bit tacked on, but it is functional. I mean, it gets the job done better than the last one. This unit has better resolution, sharper displays and more logical menus. You still control most climate and car functions through this, but the experience is a bit smoother now. While Apple CarPlay is available, we wish you could have had some better kind of Android Auto integration. The 12.3-inch driver display continues as before. It seems a bit sharper now, but otherwise, it continues with its minimalistic theme. Now in a car like this is probably the place you want to be in, and it's largely a pleasant experience. Although I do think 1 or 2 places could have been slightly better. To start with, we'll get the not so nice things out of the way, which is that this bench, I think it could have had a bit more thigh support and you could have had a bit more knee room, I feel, for such a long car. I have my seat back pushed completely and this is how much space I have, and I was expecting a little bit more. But all of this seems to be to accommodate the third row, and aside from this and this slightly flimsy-ish center armrest, I think it's generally a pleasant experience. To start with, you have a bright cabin because of the large windows and the large sunroof. You have a 4-zone climate control function. You have an AC vent here and the ones here, of course, which is nice. You have 2 Type-C ports, that's good. And the seat cushioning is, for the backrest, quite nice. So if you have a bad back, then that's not going to be a problem. And you can also recline to get yourself into a nice napping position. Now the XC90 is best described as a 5+2, and let me show you why. Now climbing in is alright. I mean, I can push this forward with this slightly inclined action, so I have a clean pass through. But as you can see, once I'm here, I really don't have much in the way of knee room. I can bring the seat back a little bit and I have about this much space, and I'm not very tall, and the seats, they give me good back support, but thigh support is really not that much at all. So I would think that this place is best suited for kids for longer journeys and adults for really small trips. Now when you first start driving the XC90 from behind the wheel, it's again very simple, very straightforward. Exactly like what you might want from an SUV. It's not overly aggressive, you're not sitting too high up, not too sporty, you're not sitting too low, you're sitting just right. Visibility is great, these pillars aren't too large. Now yes, you don't have that deep, effortless sense that you get from a 6-cylinder motor in some of its competitors, but what is there is adequate. Now the only other time you do notice that, yeah, you are a bit down on power is, say, on inclines where the motor has to work a bit harder, and that's also when you notice that the gearbox struggles a little bit, because otherwise it's almost always right on the money. You notice that as long as you keep things sane, it'll flow along a road quite predictably. It'll turn into corners. Now the steering, again, it's not the most direct or precise, but it is predictable. So you always kind of know or have a fair idea what the car is doing, and that does give you a reassuring sense from behind the wheel. Now the firm steering setting, again, it just seems to add a bit more weight. It doesn't actually quicken the steering as far as I can tell. So yeah, I think it doesn't really matter. That way it just gives you that added layer of predictability, so to speak. Priced at Rs 1.29 crore on-road Mumbai, the 2025 Volvo XC90 continues to be that calming, dependable luxury SUV it always was. It doesn't show its age all too much, which is a great compliment, and while we do wish for a more lavish second row, the rich cabin, long features list and good driving dynamics continue to keep it relevant.
Well, it's time for us to take our first commercial break here on the show, but don't go anywhere because on the other side, we'll get back to you with the Brixton Cromwell 1200. Welcome back here with us on Overdrive. A Triumph Bonneville lookalike with an Austrian accent and Chinese roots. Well, this is the Brixton Cromwell 1200, which is a modern classic motorcycle which does not have 100 years of heritage, but certainly looks the kind.
This is the Cromwell 1200, a motorcycle that's not heritage in the classic sense, but heritage in the intent. And in a world where image often matters more than the origin, does it really make a difference?
From 10 feet away, the Cromwell 1200 could pass off for a Bonneville T120 with a beard and leather wristbands. There's the teardrop tank, the twin shocks, the round headlamp, and the minimal fuss lines. But get closer and the details begin to surprise. The paint has depth. The metal finishes feel substantial. The badges and switchgear don't scream budget. In fact, it feels very well put together, more so than many affordable retros trying to be something they are not. Underneath the vintage visuals sits a 1222cc parallel twin, churning out 82 PS and a thumping 108 Newton meters of torque. Developed in-house by Brixton's parent company KSR Group and built by Gaokin in China, this motor is a clean sheet design. The Cromwell isn't a rev-happy hooligan, it's a talky cruiser in disguise. Ideal for city glides and Sunday rides, but not something that eggs you on.
That said, if you are comfortable hanging on, getting slapped by the wind, the motorcycle will comfortably do 140 plus on the highway, stay there without breaking a sweat. And then the brakes are absolutely up to the mark, dropping that anchor authoritatively when the need arises. That said, don't let the compass in the headlight bezel or on the engine casing fool you, because this is not a cross-country explorer. It prefers those chilled-out highway runs or cafe runs or quick city sprints. At 235 kilos wet, it is quite a heavyweight. And in case you puncture those tires, good luck pushing it around. It will need a lot of muscle. But once it's on the move, it settles into a really nice rhythm. So on the move, shouldn't be much of a problem. Tight parking spaces definitely will need some getting used to.
The KYB suspension setup is so firm that it shows it was made for the Austrian tarmac, not Indian. Nissan brakes though do the job without fanfare, but feel sharp and safe. The Cromwell gets a respectable list of features: traction control, dual ride modes, Eco and Sport, LED lighting all around, though the turn blinkers could have been better and bigger for better safety, and a TFT dash.
The display is quite slick and responds to throttle inputs quite nicely. It's only the animation while changing modes that feels a bit sluggish, and when you have overhead sun, it becomes a bit of a problem to read it. I think it's a very odd shortcoming for a motorcycle that otherwise feels so thoughtfully executed.
The seat is broad and surprisingly comfortable. The upright riding position is relaxed even for taller riders. Tank range is decent for city rides, not so much for long distance tours. And the mirrors actually show something other than your elbows. There aren't too many pedal, seat or handlebar vibrations to complain of either, which adds to the bike's overall sense of refinement and premium. It feels genuinely premium, in fact, in that regard. In short, it's not just for posing outside cafes, though it's perfectly suited to do that as well. At around 9 lakh rupees, the Cromwell 1200 is comfortably cheaper than the T120 and significantly more expensive than Royal Enfield's Super Meteor or Shotgun 650, both in terms of price and performance. With nearly double the displacement and output, the Cromwell plays in a different league altogether.
Sure, that badge doesn't have the legacy, they may not have the service network, they may not have the cult following yet. But for someone who wants that big bike, classic, modern retro look without coughing up Triumph money, this one sits in a sweet spot.
The Cromwell 1200 is a fascinating proposition. It doesn't pretend to be iconic. It doesn't rewrite the retro rulebook. But it also doesn't cut corners where it counts. It offers just enough of everything: looks, comfort, torque, tech, to make you wonder why more brands don't try this hard.
If you're looking for pedigree, legacy, head for a Triumph showroom. But if you want a good-looking, modern retro without maximizing your loan eligibility, the Brixton right here definitely deserves more than a second look.
It's time for us to take our final commercial break here on the show, but don't go anywhere because on the other side, we'll be chatting with Mr. Anand Kulkarni, Chief Products Officer, Head of HV Programs and Customer Service, Tata Passengers Electric Mobility, to talk about an incredible milestone.
Welcome back, you're with us on Overdrive. Tata Passengers Electric Mobility has achieved an incredible feat. 5 billion kilometers of electric vehicle driving data in just 5 years. All of that incredible data is going to help shape the future of electric mobility in India. In fact, to understand how all of this will help in shaping electric cars which will be smarter, more robust and have long range capabilities, I'm going to be joined by Anand Kulkarni, the Chief Products Officer as well as the Head of HV Programs and Customer Service, Tata Passengers Electric Mobility.
Mr. Kulkarni, thank you so much for joining us on CNBC-TV18 as well as on Overdrive.
Thank you.
5 billion kilometers driven across India. What are the key learnings and how is it going to be shaping Tata EV's plans for the future?
It's fantastic, because the 5 billion plus kilometers, in fact, the number's actually gone up, by the way, but it's come on the back of 200,000 cars that we have done. When you look at customer insights, it means it tells us where are people driving, how long are they driving, what speeds are they driving, what kind of charging pattern, charging behaviors they have, where do they like to stop, and things of this sort. When you look at the vehicle, it tells you a lot of things about how is the vehicle performing in different ambients, what kind of temperature graphs are you looking at, what kind of torque deliveries, what kind of speeds do you operate at, and what does it mean for the vehicle.
Right.
Now, when you look at all of this data and when you start combining them, it puts you into a fantastic place to start predicting how the use cases are going to be. And you use that to optimize further improvements coming in. You use that to improve efficiencies. You use that to improve reliabilities, or in summary, you get this whole lot of data and start to build an ecosystem of information and strategies that helps you build significantly better EVs and help you deliver to customer expectations much better.
The data that has been collected from, say, the Nexon EVs in the past 5 years,
Yeah.
how is that going to be used to make a very strong product in the future, say, for the Harrier EV?
one of the early insights that we had was on the amount of regeneration that you could have on the cars. And you would know of all the energy consumption that happens on the car, on an electric car, the regeneration returns back between 25 and 30% of the energy. So it means if you have optimized your regeneration in the best way, then it gives you a good amount of extra range in that sense.
Right.
Now, how do you optimize that? For example, you could make it very, very strong, and you could have a start-stop or a go slow once and go fast again,
Yeah.
kind of a
Driving
behavior,
mechanism. Yeah.
which is not really conducive. You leave that to be very free, and you will find yourself touching your brake pedal every often. So what we did was, we were the first ones to start giving a multi regeneration level parameters. So customers are therefore able to visualize and see what speeds they are operating at, how do they need to operate the car, and therefore optimize it accordingly. So you leave that in the hands of the customer. Now, all of this came up on the basis of us having analyzed data of what speeds you are operating at, how frequently is the brake operation happening, and how much overrun through the primary brakes is there for the purpose of slowing down a car.
Right.
So it's a complex assessment, and that's one of the parameters that we've been able to optimize. Now, when you go to Harrier EV, for example, all of this information is implicit.
Right.
And it automatically becomes a part of our guidelines, it becomes a part of our routines, and that helps us optimize it further.
Right.
By the way, since you've asked me about Harrier.ev,
Yeah.
the Harrier.ev is also going to be one of the first EVs made in India with all-wheel drive. So it's going to have a front motor as well.
Yeah.
Now, when you have a front motor,
Yeah.
and you have both motors trying to regenerate at the same time, there is a complex play of torque as well as during drive as well as during braking, and on top of it you have the primary brake system also being activated. So it's a very complex thing happening, and our engineers have optimized it to the best possible extent to achieve blending, so that we get the best stability, best drive performance, and the best range that you can extract out of that given configuration.
Okay, and how over time has Tata EV worked on improving battery life?
That's an interesting one, because battery life is again extremely complex parameter. It's not a silver bullet that you do this and it works fine. So it starts with choice of the right battery under the right conditions. So lithium ion batteries, I always say that they prefer to be operated in a Goldilocks zone. So for an Indian perspective, we would like to maintain them at around 30-35 degrees centigrade, so that we get the best optimal life out of them.
Right.
So the choice of the chemistry, the choice of the thermal system. So if you have to maintain these batteries at a optimal temperature, you need a good thermal system. We've very consciously chosen that all our batteries would be liquid cooled.
Okay.
And what it means is, even in our harshest summers, and these days, with all the climate change
Just
things,
getting hotter.
It's getting hotter. But even under these conditions and harsher, our batteries are always operating at a very, very comfortable temperature. Now, what that means is, if you make these batteries comfortable, the life improves. The second thing is also about the charging patterns. So, if you charge them very fast all the time, then there is an exothermic reaction during charging and discharging. So you get a lot of heat during charging as well as discharging. So while we have controlled tendency of the batteries to heat during discharging, which is by the cooling, during fast charging also, we make sure that we condition the batteries.
Right.
And therefore batteries don't heat up during fast charging as well. That ability significantly enhances the life of the batteries.
So, in terms of the Tata chargers that are available today, would you be able to give me a number as to how many private and how many public chargers there are in the country?
So we do, with every car that we sell, every personal car that we sell, we give a charger, which is a slow charger.
Right.
So there are 1.5 lakh chargers, charging points in the country that way. Now, Tata Power already has a setup of 18,000 charging points spread across the country. The plan is to go to 400,000 chargers by 2027. Now, what it means is, even today, on all highways, on the major highways which connect our big cities, within 100 kilometers, there is a fast charger available.
Okay.
So journeys on any of these highways is absolutely possible without having to worry about things. In the next 3 years, when the number of chargers go up from 18,000 today to 400,000, just imagine this is going to be a non-issue at all.
But have you found any belt today that still requires chargers, which is lacking, that the gap could be plugged?
So along the golden quadrilateral,
Yeah.
most of it is already plugged. Now we are trying to go inside, and there's a nice little map that we have on how cars are behaving, and it's spread out over the country, and you see with different years. I mean, a couple of years back you could see them only moving around in certain places,
Right.
and today you can see the entire country lit up, excepting in some smaller places, which of course is not frequented so much by people, but otherwise the entire country is now fully lit up.
Okay. Thank you so much for spending time with us and
it's-
for this insightful interview.
Great.
And congratulations once again, and looking forward to the next vehicle, which is Harrier EV for sure.
Yes, so we should be looking at that very soon. But thank you for all the questions. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I enjoyed sort of giving you insights on what we've been doing.
I'm sure you would have enjoyed more in the driving seat
I could have, yes,
than the
but
passenger.
next time. Yeah.
Next time for sure. Well, I hope you found that interview just as insightful as we found it. It's time for us to wrap up this week's edition of Overdrive. But remember, you can stay in touch with the team through our various social media platforms, and you can write to us on YouTube. Until next week, drive and ride safe.